Now, there's one of two assets that require you to take out a large loan generally, and that's a car. The other one, of course, a house. Whether you're buying your very first car, paying off a car, or wanting to move up in the market, it's not as easy as it might seem, and you've got to be careful. Joining us now to provide some helpful hints is Sagi Moodley, who is an independent motoring advisor. Morning to you, Sagi. I'm delighted to meet you at last, having heard you on your 702 show on Friday nights, and it was amazing how one could sit there for an hour, it seemed like, listening to other people's car values being assessed. So people just phoned in, asked, what's my car worth? And you told them. It was fascinating.
Well, most of the time we lie to them, so that they don't stay on the line too long and get too excited about the value of a car, which in most instances isn't worth what the book says.
Yeah.
And all that is dependent on condition of car and what someone's willing to pay for your car.
Well, I suppose the value is, it's like a house. The value of it is what someone is prepared to pay, not what they say they will pay, but what they actually pay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That is how it, that's with everything, I suppose.
Well, let's look at and maybe ask the question, what are the common mistakes? Because buying a car, particularly if it's your first car, is very exciting.
Very exciting.
And it may be, at the one hand, you're a student and you're getting in at the bottom end of the market. It may also be that your first car, in the sense that it's your first car where you can really choose what you want to buy at the upper end of the market. But either way, you've got to be careful because there's so much emotion involved.
Yes, and you get, you first time you're getting rid of mom's station wagon that was handed down to you. So, but the thing is, very important point, emotion. If you don't get the emotion completely out, and it's quite hard to do. The smell of a new car, it's your first purchase, you're on your own. Believe you me, that would be your biggest mistake. You'd end up with a lemon, or you'd end up paying way too much for a car that's not even worth that.
But I always ask the guys when they talk about the new car sales, I say, why does anyone buy a new car? Because you can get a very good pre-owned or second-hand car or used car for, say, 5,000 or 10,000 on the clock, but a much lower price.
Yes, and I would be very careful about saying much lower. It doesn't really happen like that anymore because the second-hand car market has picked up drastically. So you're going to get a second-hand car for maybe 10,000 Rand less than a brand new one. Why would you? When you can have a brand new one for 10,000 Rand more. So if you look at it at that point, new second-hand or demo models, like we put them, second-hand and demo models slightly different. Second-hand is somebody else has driven the car for 50, 60,000 kilometers. Yes, there's a huge price difference there. And you're quite right. Why buy brand new when you could buy second-hand and get most of the warranties still intact? So, if you're buying your first car, but you want a brand new car, then obviously do your homework and do the necessary.
So to take that emotion out, as with all these things, one should sit down before you go about it and write down a couple of points that you need to consider.
Yes.
What are those points?
First one would the obvious one would be your budget. And then after that, what fits into that budget? And then after that, what kind of deposit you have, what kind of financial package you're looking at. And buying a car, that monthly installment isn't the cost of motoring. You got to look at things, incidentals, your fuel for the month. When your tires get, with the potholes we have on our roads these days.
And warranties don't cover tires.
Warranties don't cover tires, and depends on what kind of service or maintenance plan you've purchased with the vehicle.
The other thing that's seductive is it's like these iPads and all the electronic gadgets. It says 249 Rand a month. You say, yeah, I can afford that. But you look what you're going to pay as opposed to trying to buy it cash or putting a deposit. So what's that balance there? Because the banks are presumably have to be competitive. So should you try and buy cash? Should you try and save and buy cash? Or is it reasonable to expect a 4 or 5 year payoff plan?
They say never accept financial advice from your mechanic and never accept mechanical advice from your financial advisor. I don't know if I'm qualified to give you financial advice here, but I'm going to try. I would suggest that the best thing, and in anybody's book, would be a cash buy. Save enough money, buy outright. And in certain instances, if you've got a large deposit, but you shopped around, you could actually get a car for just the deposit. And you don't have to worry about the monthly installments. And everybody says, oh, 249 a month, I can afford that. What about the insurance that goes with it? And these days, you can't buy a brand new car. You can't even take it off the floor without having insurance.
Unless you buy it fully paid.
You buy it cash, but then you buy it cash, you still want insurance.
Yeah.
And all these things are dependent also now on your age. So, there's a lot of factors to be considered before just running in there and saying, I can afford 2,999 a month.
What about at the higher end of the market? So you've got someone who's had a couple of cars. Now they want to really go into the, and we're going to talk about investment cars as investments and the classic cars as a, they think, I'm now a high net worth individual. I've grown in my company. I'm ready for the big league. What sort of things should they be thinking about? The same principles, I suppose, apply.
You see, when you're looking at the upper end of the market, it doesn't really apply to them. They have the money. The
So
company
they
pays for
cash.
it. Or the company's buying, you know, they have all these package deals. You get a company car for your company allowance is 20 grand a month. He can afford that, you know, or he can even put in his own money and purchase that. So at the upper end, there's not too much of a concern. Whereas in the middle to lower end, a lot of people are getting caught out. A lot of people are losing their cars because they never thought of the package they wanted, the financial package or the bundle they wanted.
As with all things, if you're really wealthy, you don't have to worry because you'll always have something to do. But going back to that middle and lower part then, going into it, there's, in terms of the brands available, the kinds of cars, I'm told that we have more car brands, car makes, and varieties of make in South Africa than anywhere else. When you look at those guides and the lists of cars, it's endless.
You know, at one time...
And they all have air conditioning now, and they all have electric windows.
Absolutely. At one time, we had, I think, 5 or 6 major manufacturers. Now it's more like 10, 15 major manufacturers, or even more, I could well be wrong, up to, I think, 50 manufacturers, with each manufacturer having 200-300 models in their lineup. So you work that out and decide which car you want. You can walk into any showroom these days and make the car suit your budget. I want a car, I want these extras. That's the other thing when purchasing a new car.
All right, new cars is one thing, second-hand is another. What about the auctions? You know, they're on the radio telling you to
Not
go
for
to
a
them?
first-time buyer. Never for a first-time buyer.
Why? I mean, what I'm saying is, why a second-time buyer?
No, not even second time. Not even
you
third
don't want to go
time.
to auctions.
You don't want to go to auction, but if you do want to go to an auction, and there are very small instances where you've come away from an auction with a great deal. Auctions are just that, auctions. And when you buy at an auction, the CPA says it's voetstoots. You got no recourse. Absolutely no recourse.
But doesn't the price reflect that? So,
no, it doesn't.
So you're paying the same sort of price and no guarantees?
Absolutely. And I've been to auctions recently, and people have been paying some absurd amounts of money for cars that they could have walked in and got full service plans with it.
As a broad principle, obviously you can't talk brands. There's so many, it would be invidious to pick them out. But what would be your principle to guide you when you're looking at the kind of car? Now, you first-time buyer student or first-time buyer starting out working, small car. But again, what are the guides there? I personally, for example, think it's never worth getting a 2-door car when you can get a 4-door car, which is also small and compact.
You see, that also depends on what you want. You're a student, you're a single guy, you don't want to take your friends with you, you'll want a 2-door. But if you're a student and you want to have parties, obviously the 4-door is going to be fine for you. And we're just using a student here. And with a student, you don't want to buy a car that you don't know too much about. You want a brand name.
Okay, reliable, well-known brand?
Reliable, well-known brand. Because that's your first buy. You may spend a little bit more money, but stick with a brand name, because when you come to selling it or getting rid of it, you sell it down the line to other students, to people people you've spent time with, and people that want a first-time car. So, and you know, if it's a brand name, they buy it quicker than if it's you know, one of these, how should I put it? I don't want to say bad brands, but there are no bad cars out there, but an unknown or lesser known brand in the market.